everybody and welcome to Round Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review, taking a little break for some Japanese goodness to dive into a review copy for Imprint Films' Asian Collection, which is the Sure Shock Volume 2 set, which has been available for a little bit of time now, since November of last year. I was very generously given this box set to review and dive into, and much like my other previous test disc and physical content, I'll be diving into the feature films themselves, first time viewing, and the special features. I have already dived into the unboxing for this edition, so if you do want to know the contents inside in terms of what you're going to be getting, if you do decide to purchase this edition, it is limited to 1,500 copies, so keep that in mind if you are interested. Big thanks to Imprint Films for sending me this box set and first time collaboration with them. There is some wonderful distribution companies right now in terms of Arrow, 80 Films, Radiance, Vinegar Syndrome. Everyone is diving into the Hong Kong and Japanese game right now, and it's very much appreciated that Imprint would give me one of their Asian collections to dive into and to kind of discuss with you on the channel. Now, in terms of the feature film itself, first time viewing for The Enchanted Shadow, released in 1960, directed by Lee Hon-sing, which is a director I'm not really familiar with, if I'm being completely honest. I got more of an impression of him, more of an insight into his filmography from the wonderful extra on this edition. I believe one of his films is available on the 88's recent release from last year. I'll put an artwork right here for it. I'm not really familiar with this director. I know from the extras and the audio commentary from this edition, he is known for doing more kind of period-based kind of dramas, more musical-based, more kind of elegant, more stylized kind of period dramas, and diving into some various different types of spooky kind of, storylines. A lot of directors and actors and talent writers. There's just so many to keep track of, and only some recently now are starting to get the more limelight. It is wonderful that Imprint Films are diving into the more kind of skew and more harder access kind of spookier kind of Shaw Brothers library and delivering for the very first time HD transfers. Now, in terms of the story for The Enchanted Shadow, released in 1960, as mentioned, it's a very familiar story. It's based on original source material that another film was adapted as well, which I think you're going to be familiar with, in terms of two men going to a haunted location. I believe it is a castle or kind of a mansion type location, and essentially they uncover a ghost that is lying there, and romantic kind of endeavors happen, and there is an evil kind of ghost demon that is collecting the kind of the spirits of the people that do dare go there, essentially, and essentially using this woman as a forefront to seduce and to kind of wow these kind of men into submission, and then basically killing them and taking them for the kind of their own twisted kind of gains. This is very much a interpretation of the source material that later would be much more heavily recognized as the Chinese ghost story, which I've already covered on the channel already. I've talked about all three of those films and getting brand new 4K releases very soon. So you've got two separate films that have tackled the same source material. I believe there is also another remake and other versions of the same kind of tale, and different iterations as well in terms of loosely based. So you could say this is the original Chinese ghost story without the more crazy kind of 80s kind of practical effects and wirework wuxia style kind of martial arts fighting, the gore effects, the crazy visuals, in terms of kind of beefing up that story, beefing up that kind of time. The original Chinese ghost story works really well for the booming supernatural craze that was going on within Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest and many others like that during the time, and it came at the right time, right place in terms of adapting that story and having two big Hong Kong actresses and actors, to kind of fill in that gap and to kind of, wow the audience with. This is very much a time period, almost whimsical, kind of, elegant, kind of classy, kind of 60s kind of production. And one thing I would say about this film that is really remarkable is the production. I think looks really fantastic. This is a 4:3 aspect ratio in terms of the presentation on the Blu-ray HD transfer. I don't think this was ever meant to be seen in terms of a widescreen, but you can change on the TV, of course. In terms of the biggest compliment I can give the film is its production value, because it looks really fantastic. The lighting, the technical aspects, the Foley work, the scoring, the use of colors and locations, even though it is limited at times, it's all really well presented. And this is someone from a musical background who does musical numbers I've seen clips of from the extras. It does not surprise me that these are looking really, really good. And not to mention having some pretty good visual effects at times and some good makeup work and some good editing to kind of bring that kind of spooky kind of atmosphere up front. And it does have some blood at times, which is pretty impressive. And, you know, it definitely isn't going crazy level like the Chinese ghost story movie would do. It is very appropriate, I guess, for its time, for the 1960s kind of Shaw Brothers. And being the fact that these films are kind of just slot in terms of writers, you know, actresses and actors and directors, getting these films out there pretty quickly, you know, it doesn't surprise me in terms of the standard, in terms of using the sets and the formatted blueprint that these films are being made in. Now, on the flip side of that coin, unfortunately, comes the problem with the film, and it is unfortunately just an okay movie by the end. This is an 18-minute film with about 30 to 35 minutes of actual material to actually play with, and it has a lot of rinse and repeat in terms of its story. It's, you know, as mentioned, it is the Chinese ghost story. It is a romantic kind of, you know, period drama with some supernatural and spooky kind of aspects. And while I think the concept is good, it's just not particularly that well executed, and I don't think the performances are particularly that great. I think the main actress and the evil kind of, you know, sorcerer kind of, you know, demon ghost we see in the practical effects throughout the film, I think they were pretty good. I think they did a good job in terms of making me care a bit more. But the problem is with the film, it is rinse and repeat. The dialogue is not particularly that great. I think some scenes just go on for way too long. A film can be quite special and quite unique in its own right for the decade it's made in. There are many films in the Japanese space that are before the 1960s that I think are absolutely fantastic. And I think it comes down to the intention of the filmmaking, because there are many great Japanese and even Hong Kong movies before the 60s that are designed to be spooky, kind of mythical kind of tales. They have great performances, great stories, and have the same kind of limitations, and they're utilizing the location, the set, the visual work. When it comes to something like this, as mentioned, it does feel like another assembly line, kind of, let's get this done, filmed, package put together, presented in cinemas, to the next production, where some movies have a bit more kind of passion behind it. I don't think there is much kind of energy about the film, apart from some cool creative kind of visual kind of imagery that we do get within the second to third act. It's just nothing I haven't really seen before and done better, whether it's before the 60s or even after. An okay movie. It doesn't really break new ground. It's adapting a source material that by this point now I've seen loads of different times within Shaw Brothers' Golden Harvest. And even though it is the original, maybe it's one of the first ones to do it, doesn't mean it is the blueprint gold standard. You know, there is many other versions of this material. A bit of a shame, ultimately. In terms of the special features for this edition, you do get a wonderful 14-minute extra from Paul Phonorath on the Enchanted Shadow 2025 film historian, which has done quite a few extras for Imprint's Asian kind of collection, which I've seen previously on the Erotic Ghost Story collection as well, which he does dive into some pretty interesting kind of facts and give his own kind of interpretation in terms of the film, his own kind of insight into how he watched it, in terms of him seeing it in cinemas in 1970. Long after a kind of original run, and talking about the kind of the director, the kind of the inspirations, and giving you kind of clips and kind of facts and posters, and just a really good amount of detail goes into those videos. And I really do like his insight and his kind of interpretation of the material and giving his own passion on for like a little short video, which I think is pretty cool. There's also an archival extra called The Boundless Life, feature on the director himself, original trailer and DVD trailer. The archival extra, I believe, is from an old DVD, because it just seemed like an old 4x3 kind of, you know, strip from a DVD set, which gives a bit of an insight into the director himself in terms of his background and how he got into cinema. Alongside, you do get a brand new audio commentary from Stephen Hammond, which is an author, and Hong Kong Asian film expert Arnon Venomer, for a brand new audio commentary for this film. There you go, guys, been my thoughts and impressions on The Enchanted Shadow. I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions. Please comment down below. In the meantime, guys, I'm for reviews. Signing out.